Well, thank you very much. And a couple quick announcements before we begin. The first one's about safety because I really do care about your safety. I've been doing this, I've been doing sensory stuff for little over 42 years. And I guarantee you, no one has died from one of these sessions, from eating something in my session. And the reason for that is we do a really good job of monitoring what we're giving you. So everything that you're going to taste and smell today is safe. Now, there's one thing that I don't know and I don't need to know, and that's if you have any allergies. So if you've had any allergies, it's up to you to decide if you want to taste anything. I will give you as much information as I can. If you have any question, ask me or ask one of my colleagues at the tables over here, and maybe they'll know the answer. Maybe not because they didn't prepare all these candies and things. But I do want to be careful because that's the one thing that did happen to me one time in India. I had a young lady who had a fish allergy and didn't know it. And we used some fish odorants and some omega pills in the training. And the first one that she touched, she just blew up and we had to rush her to the hospital. So I do want to be careful about that. Other than that, everything is safe. Even if you smell or start to taste something and it tastes really nasty, it's still safe. It just tastes really nasty. Okay. We're not going to do a whole bunch of really nasty stuff today. If you were a group in, for example, the pet food industry, we train a lot of tasters for dog food and cat food. Maybe we'd have a bunch of nasty things to taste, but not today. Today, we're going to focus on milk and cheese. And so as much as we can run into some pretty nasty things, especially when it comes to cheese, we won't have to worry about that. The second part of that safety thing is it is voluntary, obviously. We're not force feeding you. We're not making you taste everything. And I will give you some heads up as we go along. For example, when we get to bitter basic taste on the tongue, I'm going to be using caffeine. So if you have any reservations about caffeine, you have, heart issues or whatever, I don't need to know any of that. Just don't taste it. And you can come up to me afterwards and say, hey, I didn't really want to taste the caffeine. Is there something else I could try that's bitter to kind of teach myself bitter? And I can give you some alternative things to try. I apologize to the people that are online because most of this session is interactive. I've got lots of things at the beginning to taste. It's just general training. And then we've got some bunch of milk samples to taste, and we have a bunch of cheese to end up with. So in the room here, we will be smelling and tasting lots of things. To the best I can for the folks online, I'll describe what we're tasting and what it tastes like and why we're tasting it, what we're trying to learn from all of that. Are there any questions about safety before I even get into it? Just ask me. You can stop me. I don't know how the moderators feel, but my opinion is stop me anytime and ask me questions. All right, we divided up this 2-hour session into 3 segments, and we will take a little break in the middle for a couple of reasons. One is I want to give you a bio break, give you a little rest from listening to me for 2 hours. We also may need a little help between segments, just throwing stuff in the garbage can, because there is another session in here right after we're done. And as you can see already, we haven't even put everything out. We tend to be pretty messy when we do these sensory workshops. So I would appreciate any help you can give us. This is going to be self-pour. So I'm going to ask you to help us out. When we begin the tasting, we're going to be passing things down the table and you're going to pour yourself a little bit of it. And all you're going to need is a little tiny bit. And I'll talk about why in a bit. I do want to go through some slides about why sensory, why flavor quality is important. What are some important issues to think about? This will be valuable for those in the room getting ready to taste, but also all of you out there online. Then I'm going to teach you to be a descriptive panelist. Now, a descriptive panelist is different than an expert. So I'm guessing there are experts in the room. I'm guessing some of you are dairy farmers and you know your milk, you know your cheese. You're the expert when it comes to your product. Maybe some of you are beef and you know your beef, and maybe it's something else and you know that product. Experts tend to know one product really, really well. Problem with experts is they don't have a standard vocabulary. So like I train beer tasters around the world and the brewmasters are experts, but to try to get a brewmaster from Anheuser-Busch to talk to a brewmaster from Heineken would take a miracle because they have their own terms they use for beer. What I'm teaching you is something different. This is called descriptive sensory. It is science, it's objective, and it's based on reference standards. And the goal is to get everybody using the same terms, the same words, but also the same intensity scale. So that if I say, what are you tasting that and how much, everyone's going to give me similar words and similar numbers because we're going to understand the intensity scale. And you're going to be surprised how much we're going to learn and get calibrated just in the first half hour of this session. Now, that stuff you can apply to anything. You can apply it at your farm. If you're a producer, you can apply it at your company. Or if you just love cooking and love entertaining, you can apply it at home. Those principles are going to help you everywhere. Then we're going to move along after we learn all the basics, and we're going to go into a milk segment. And that's where I'm going to focus most of the grass-fed discussion. We're going to start by tasting 6 milk samples. I'm not going to tell you what they are. We're going to taste them together. You're going to score them. I'll explain those score sheets in a bit. And then after you taste the sample, I will talk about it. You'll go back and retaste a little bit, and then I'll reveal to you what that sample was, and then we'll move on to the next sample. I will give you a hint that it is focused on the unique flavor we get sometimes with grass-fed milk, especially 100% grass-fed milk. Then I will cherry pick some slides. Well, I have already cherry picked them, but I'll show you some slides from some work. We're in year 7 of a massive study looking at 100% grass-fed milk. And I'm going to show you some of the more recent results, just high-level stuff, and point you in a direction where you can find out more. And then when we finish all of the milk slides and I talk about grass-fed milk, we're going to do a second taste session where we're going to go through a bunch of cheeses. And I'll talk a little bit about the work that we've been doing in cheese. I won't have any slides for that. I think we're going to start to run out of time at that point. So because one of the things you're going to learn is that I love to tell stories, and it takes a little while. I see people must have sat in my sessions before because people are shaking their heads. So we're going to do the milk, and then we're going to do the cheese. The goal here is to improve flavor quality, to improve what's called sustained market success. Because if we can do that, everybody benefits, especially the farmers, especially the producers. Because what we need, and we need people to buy products, not just once or twice, but over and over again, to make it a business and to survive and to grow and to expand. And so our goal on this work at UVM has all about growing and expanding the dairy industry, the beef industry, honey. Today, we're going to focus on dairy, and we're going to focus on, within that, on milk and cheese. We're not going to talk a lot about consumers today. Any of you that were at the Gathering of Good Grazers a couple summers ago, I focused a little bit more on the consumer. Today, we're going to focus a little bit more on the farm. So just so you know, that's a little bit of a difference than the last time we got together. When we think about success in the market, and it doesn't matter if you're just a small farm that has a farm stand or you're a big mega international food company, there are 4 things you have to do to be successful. And all 4 of these things involve sensory or product quality, flavor quality. The first thing that you need to do to be successful is market the product. So you have to communicate. If you're trying to sell it, you have to communicate the image of the product and why somebody should want to buy it. And that's true whether you're just a farm stand or you're Anheuser-Busch, okay? The most successful marketing programs in the world are the ones that include flavor quality information, if it's a food product. And remind me later, and I can tell you a couple really powerful stories that came out of Japan about that statement. The second thing is you have to deliver the sensory experience that your customer wants. In this case, in this group, that's not easy because it's a natural product, because there's a lot of variation. There's seasonal variation. There's variation animal to animal. There's variation in microbes if you're making the cheese. There's variation in storage. There's so much that we have a hard time controlling that we have more variation just by nature of the products that we're talking about today. But I'll tell you, within that variation, and I'll explain what that means when I get to our slides on the work we're doing, the groups that are more consistent, that deliver a more consistent smelling and tasting product are the ones that win in the market. So consistency is important even at the farm level. And then we have this producing at the right price. And that's a tough one. That's a lot of big manufacturers focus on that because they're at such a scale that, fractions of a penny make a difference. So can I use this ingredient for this ingredient? At the farm level, it's stuff you already do to keep the cost of production down. It's everything. managing what you're doing at the farm to try to keep the cost of producing the product as low as you can, except with one more dimension, doing that, but not affecting the flavor quality. So making changes at farm, changing things out, harvesting at a different time, whatever things you do. And I'm not a farmer. I'll confess right now, you can hear it in my voice. I don't speak good English because I have a Boston accent. You'll hear me say I pack my can Havajad for sure. But I'm not a farmer, so I can't speak to all the farming practices. I'm learning from my colleagues a lot. But you know, there are things you can do, but everything potentially has a trade-off. And that trade-off is flavor quality is one of the trade-offs that we can have. So this is an important subject. I have done a bunch of these workshops since being at UVM. This is my 6th year at UVM, and had follow up to most of them with farmers who are starting to use some of the things that I'm teaching them with questions and telling me these wonderful success stories of things they caught, things they did, just little things differently, but then notice a big difference in the quality of what they're producing. And that's what I hope happens today as well. I hope both in the room and online, picking up tidbits, even without smelling and tasting, that I can give you some ideas, give you some skills to help you do the things that you want to do and that you enjoy. To some extent, you're all consumers. You like things and you don't like things. Certainly your customers are consumers. They like things, they don't like things. Average people have a hard time describing what they like and don't like. It's a big problem in consumer research where we say, well, why did you like that one and not that one? And they'll tell you stuff, but a lot of times they lie. They'll tell you because they don't know. They think they know why they liked it or didn't, but they really don't. You know, I did work in South Africa for a winery, and they said, we don't like this wine because it's too buttery. It had nothing to do with butter. Butter in wine is diacetyl. It comes in fermentation. It's an artificial butter compound. What they meant to say is, I don't like this wine because it's not blended. It doesn't have harmony of flavor. When I drink it, it's very harsh, or I should say harsh. And things stick out, right? But I want to point out the second thing here, because consumers eat and drink what they like. And sometimes small farms, small companies make a mistake. And they think they're operating under what's called compliance and not consumption. Okay, here's the difference. Consumption is you're producing a product and you want it to taste the best in the world. You want your milk, your cheese, your beef, your vegetables, whatever it is, to be the best in the world. Okay, complaint's easy. You want to avoid producing anything that someone smells or tastes and says, oh, that's got something nasty in it, I don't want to drink it. So that's an easy one. Compliance falls in two categories. One is pharmaceutical. So prescription drugs, we do a lot of work flavoring prescription drugs. They don't need to taste great. In fact, we try not to make them taste great so people don't abuse them. But they have to taste good enough that people take their medicine. That's compliance. Make it taste good enough that they. So here's what happens with small farms, small producers, small companies. They start to think in terms of, well, I have a real good selling proposition. I'm the local guy. I'm healthier. I'm this, I'm that. And so even though my product maybe doesn't taste as good as the next guy's or the one in the store, they'll drink it. It only has to taste good enough because they want to buy it because I'm local, because I'm fresh, because I'm whatever. And there is some truth to that. But there's more truth to when people get home, they consume over and over again what they like best. That's what they do. So we really, even in this situation, even with those kinds of propositions, have to focus on flavor quality. We can't just say, as long as there's nothing major wrong with it, my customers will drink it. Some of them will. But my guess is you've just created a barrier to really expanding and becoming super, super successful. And so we want to avoid that compliance. There are these things called flavor leadership criteria. If you remember one thing today, one thing, if I had to pick one thing for you to know how to measure and understand, it's these 5 criteria. This is the most powerful thing we know in the sensory world. We know that people like products that best meet these 5 criteria. So the goal of this session and most of the sessions that I run is to educate people what these criteria are and how to measure them. It's one of the things we're going to do today. So what are the 5 criteria? The first one says aromatic identity, immediate impact of identifiable flavor. Simply put, when you put something in your mouth to eat, it immediately tastes like what you expect. There's no flavor delay. There's no surprises. Chocolate's a good example. You know, years and years ago, I helped in London to develop Cadbury chocolate. And this was a big deal because in the world of chocolate, the chocolates where you get the cocoa and the buttery taste and the creaminess and all of these things right away, those are the market leading chocolates. Okay. In some of the grass-fed milk we're going to taste in a little bit, you're going to see there's a little flavor delay. And you're going to be like that old woman in the commercial years ago, we used to yell out, "Where's the beef?" You're going to be like, "Where's the milk?" So immediate impact identifiable flavor, called order of appearance. The second one is amplitude. That we're not going to learn a whole bunch of today. And the reason is it's the most complicated thing for us as experts and trained tasters to measure. Amplitude is two things: balance of flavor, harmony. Consumers like things that are smooth, that are blended. Things don't stick out. The second one is called fullness of flavor. That means complexity. People like things that are a little bit more complex. There's a reason why when people drink coffee or tea, most people don't drink it just black. They add sugar or they add cream or they're building up the complexity of the product, trying to create some harmony because that's what they like. So amplitude is balance and fullness. Mouthfeel has to be compatible. We're going to talk a lot about that. So it's okay to have a spicy burn in your mouth if it's hot mustard, but if you're drinking milk, we don't want to have a burn in the mouth, right? And there's a second part to that. It's compatible mouthfeel within a certain intensity, because like with Coca-Cola, we could talk about the secret of Coca-Cola. One of the secrets is it leaves you with a dry mouthfeel. And that dry mouthfeel does two things. It makes you think, "Oh, this is refreshing," but subconsciously, it also tells you want to drink some more, okay? But if that dry mouthfeel gets too strong, now it becomes a problem. So it's compatible mouthfeel, but also at the right intensity. The one that people have been focused on forever are no off notes. Whatever the product is that you produce or that you provide an ingredient that's produced, you don't want anything in there that shouldn't be in there. I'm going to talk on our project 2 years ago. We had a milk, 100% grass-fed milk from one of our farms that had a blueberry taste. It actually wasn't a great blueberry taste, but blueberry taste. Now, some people would say, "Well, I like blueberries. I like fermented blueberry. I like wine. I like whatever." But we don't want blueberry flavor in our milk. It's just disjointed. It's unblended. And so off notes are not just traditional off notes like chemical, soapy, waxy, cardboardy. It could be I'm tasting milk and, oh, I get this great peach taste, but it doesn't belong in this product. So we're going to talk a bit about that. And the last one, and this one is critical for grass-fed products, is aftertaste. Because if we have to pick one of these that is the single biggest one that's affected by 100% grass-fed or pasture-raised, it's going to be aftertaste, because the chemistry that forms in these products lingers. In the case of milk, we go up to 3 minutes after we're done tasting, and we can still taste things in the milk with 100% grass-fed milk. So those are our 5 things. Get what I expect early, balance and fullness, compatible mouthfeel, nothing in there that shouldn't be there, and short, clean aftertaste. If anyone ever tells you, "No, but you're a local farm, you want your milk, you want that milk flavor to last so people can enjoy it," well, that's just made up. That's not true. What people want is they want a nice, big impact of flavor, disappears quickly so they can drink some more, disappears quickly so that they can eat some more in their food. Okay, that's what we want. So I'm going to teach you some of that. We are going to be doing descriptive sensory today. There are other sensory methods. Actually, you're going to be doing the first one also, because for every sample I'm going to give you today, I'm going to ask you to tell me first how much you like or don't like it. And we'll go through that in a little bit. That's called hedonic testing. That's subjective. In that test, I'm asking your opinion. Descriptive sensory is when we're then going to get to the point I'm going to say, "Okay, I get it. You like it or you don't like it. Now tell me what it tastes like." And I'm going to ask you to use objective terms that I'm going to teach you to tell me, okay, it's got a little bit of sweet, it's got a little bit of cheesy butyric acid, it's got a little bit more, maybe a moderate level of a bitter taste, maybe there's some silo taste, some forage taste, but we're going to come up with some real good descriptors to describe things objectively. So a definition for what I'm teaching you today is using humans as instruments to objectively measure the sensory properties of food. In today's case, it's going to be milk and cheese. Now, it's not by accident that I put this graph, and I apologize. Most of you can't see. You're not going to need to see the detail on these slides, and you can get the slides afterwards. This is what we call a flavor map that was generated by a group of trained tasters. So it's not subjective. This doesn't say good or bad. It simply says, here's a whole bunch of milk in the market. This is all 100% grass-fed milk. And here's a scatter plot of how much variation there is in flavor. Okay. The bottom axis is quality. So as you go to the right, the milk has a higher flavor quality, meaning consumers like it more. On the y-axis, stuff at the bottom is thinner and stuff at the top is more complex, usually because of fat content. Now, if you were making a formulated product like Coca-Cola, something that's not natural, something we don't have all that variation I talked about earlier, you would want all of your points to be in one of those boxes. If I were to do, and I have done it, taste a Coca-Cola around the world and plot it on this map, every sample of Coca-Cola I taste in the world would fall in one of those boxes, those gray boxes you see, every single point. Now, when it comes to products like cheese and milk and beef, we know that there's a bigger range that's acceptable to people, okay? Bigger than, say, Coca-Cola or Tropicana orange juice. So the range that we get with things like milk and cheese and beef would be 4 of those boxes. So you can see the bulk of those market samples are in 4 of those boxes, but some still fall outside of those boxes. And that's problematic because this chart was back in 2024. It means that people go to the store, if they get one of those brands or one of those containers that falls outside of those boxes, the difference is big enough that not only do they notice, but they don't like it and they might even complain. So that's how we read these kinds of charts. So now I'm going to go through some basic training. No questions about that background stuff, right? All right. I can see people get hungry, even though it was just lunch. I mean, I don't know. So now we're going to get into some of the basics, and I'm going to teach you some basic terminology and how we use our tongue and how we use our nose. Things haven't changed a whole. This isn't rocket science. I mean, the picture on the left is me on a taste panel in 1982, I think. We were developing Tropicana Pure Premium Orange Juice. So we're tasting orange juice. The picture on the right is just a couple of years ago at Jasper Hill Farm, where we're now using this same technology to taste artisan cheese. And so the methodology hasn't changed. It's not rocket science. What you need to do is do it often. You need to practice. It's like playing a musical instrument. Once I teach you some things, you need to taste and you need to smell, and then you'll get really good at it. So there are 3 parts to flavor that we're going to focus on today when we get to the milk and the cheese. The first part is what we're going to call basic taste. And I'm going to start with that in a minute. I'll go through and give you a definition. The second one's called aromatics. And the third one is called mouthfeel. So those are the 3 categories that we're going to start with. We're going to start with basic taste. Basic taste are, by the way, quick question before I continue. How many senses do you have? Does anybody in the room know how many senses you have? No, everybody wants to answer, but they're like, this is a trick question. I can tell, I know, you learned in school. It's a trick question. In some way, it is a trick question because what we're taught in school are the 5 primary senses, right? Taste, smell, hearing, sight, and feel. Those are the 5 basic. In fact, you have 9 senses, and ESP is not one of them. Just, I know people jump to that 6th sense. It's not. So what are the other 4 senses that we don't talk about a lot? And by the way, all of these are part of your nervous system. All are driven by the brain. The brain is a very powerful organ and controller of the instrument. So the sixth sense is actually you have the ability to tell the difference between something that's hot and cold. It's a temperature. It's called thermoception. Until something gets super hot or super cold, and then the 7th sense kicks in, and that's a sense of pain. So when things get super hot, people often say, oof, it froze me. And when things get super cold, like people that have had liquid nitrogen, unfortunately hit them, will say it burned like crazy. So being able to tell hot and cold is 6th sense, pain is 7th sense. 8th sense is helping me right now. 8th sense is your sense of balance. We're one of the few animals in the world that can walk upright because of the inner ear. Sense of balance. 9th sense is actually 2 in 1. It's a sense of movement. So I can tell if I'm moving. Even if I have my eyes shut, I can tell if I'm moving. I can also tell if something's moving around me. Now, of those extra 4 senses, we're only going to practice with one today. So we're gonna do sense of smell today, sense of taste. We're also going to do a little bit of the sense of pain. So I like to inflict a little bit of pain in these workshops. So we're going to start with basic taste on the tongue. Okay, this is our sense of taste. And on your tongue, you have taste buds. Now, what a lot of people don't know, although those of you who have sat through these sessions already know where I'm heading, a lot of people don't realize we don't have universal taste buds. Some people think you put something in your mouth, you taste everything in your mouth. That's far from the truth. In fact, on your tongue, you have taste buds, which are detectors of specific classes of chemistry. And that's it. Okay. And those classes of chemistry, we label 5 basic tastes. So one class of chemistry are sugars. We call that your sweet taste. And you have sweet taste buds. But all you taste with your sweet taste buds is sweet. You don't taste salty, you don't taste sour, you don't taste bitter, and you don't taste anything else like beef or cheese or milk. You can't taste those with your taste buds. A second set of taste buds are sensitive to acids, like lactic acid in milk or acetic acid in vinegar. These are your sour taste buds. Third taste bud is salt, all the salts. Fourth taste bud is bitter compounds like caffeine, quinine, alpha acids, and hops. And then the fifth taste bud, which we are going to taste today, we didn't do this the last time, is umami, which are taste buds that are sensitive to a class of chemicals called glutamates, primarily things like MSG, monosodium glutamate. So I want to start with sweet. So at this end of each table, there are some bottles. If you could pick up bottle number 1, everybody on this end, grab one of the little 1-ounce medicine cups. So in front of you, you should have a small stack of 1-ounce medicine cups. Oh, I just realized we're going to need more medicine cups. I only put 3 out. And what you're going to do is you're going to pour yourself a little and pass that bottle down so everybody can pour themselves on a little bit of sample number 1. Okay. Once we get the process down, it'll move a little faster. But yeah, if you could just pass that bottle down. And everybody can, you don't need more than half. I would say even less. Because one of the things we want to be careful of is this thing called sensory fatigue. As a human biological instrument, our senses will shut down quickly when they become overwhelmed. So if we taste something that has a lot of sugar, when we get to the milk, we might not taste sweet for a while. Or we taste something that has a lot of salt. When we get to the cheese, you might not taste as much salt. So we want you to be careful how much you drink. The second issue is, I'm worried about your safety. I told you that earlier. As a professional taster, I always limit how much I taste. Because, you know, I've been tasting 42 years and I've tasted everything from vomit to cat food to other stuff. So we limit what we put in our bodies. And the pharmaceutical stuff is a whole nother ballgame. So once everybody has a little bit of number 1, I want you to go ahead and taste it and see if you taste anything. Oh, did you get sample number 1? No. You taste something? What do you taste? Sweet. Now, sweet's kind of an interesting one. We all know sweet. And just so you know, we are all genetically wired to like sweet. All babies like sweet. And just so happens that most of the things in the world that are sweet tasting are not poisonous, not bad for you. Now, as we get older, we have what are called, locational or environmental factors that we may not like sweets anymore. Maybe we ate too much as a youngster, or maybe we had a bad experience with something that was sweet and was also something else. So some of us, as we get older, will say we don't like sweet products. But the reality is, as babies and early man, sweet was an early indicator of it's safe to eat. Early cavemen used to walk up on things and the first instinct was to lick it. And if it was sweet, I'm going to eat it. Right? I still do that, by the way, but that's a different thing. All right, so sweet is one of the taste buds. Now let's go bottle number 2. I'm sorry, I'm going to move a little quick because I know we want to get to milk and cheese, and I got a lot to talk about when we get to those. But yeah, normally things in life, most of the sugars and different sugars have different potencies. We did a lot of work with all the artificial sweeteners. We did work with some artificial sweeteners that are 1,000 times more sweet than anything in the market now. That just, wow. But there is a difference in your perception. We're not going to get into it today between a natural sugar and an artificial sweetener. And a difference between those and what we call now high intensity sweeteners, things like monk fruit, things that are quote unquote not artificial, but they're not really sucrose or fructose or any of those. All right, the second taste bud we're looking at is salt. So sour. This one's going to be sour. What I'm using here is food grade citric acid. It's that white powder they put on kids' candy. So if you don't mind tasting a little approved food grade citric acid, taste the second solution and see if you get something. Now, I see a lot of people in the room. I don't, obviously people at home, unless they made up some solutions and are tasting it, won't be doing this. But one of the things I see is I see a lot of people in the room making faces when you tasted that second one. And we have an expression when we train tasters: instruments don't make faces. Okay. Now you can make faces today, but really when we're in a room, we always do sensory at our UVM trained panel. It's always a group of 4 or 5, 6 people. We don't want to be making faces because now it might influence other people in the room. Now, I don't blame you for making faces. How strong is that? If I said slight, moderate, or strong, what would you say? Slight or moderate. It's a little bit more, I think. The other thing you get with sour is you get some puckering and some salivation. So we're going to get to mouthfeels in a minute. Now, even though you have sweet taste buds all across your tongue, and you do, we tend to perceive sweet more on the tip. Okay, even though we have them across the tongue. Sour, you have sour taste buds all across your tongue, but we tend to perceive it more on the sides. That's the way the brain processes the information. So we have sweet taste buds that do not taste sour, they just taste sweet. Sour taste buds just taste sour, not sweet. Now let's go to bottle number 3. Bottle number 3 is going to be salt. So this is the one I was going to warn you, if you have high blood pressure or you're trying to limit salt, this does have salt in it, and it's a good level of salt, but I'll give it away the solution. Salt taste buds, again, are all over your tongue, and we tend to perceive salt all over. It's like umami. When we get to umami, you're going to see we get umami all over your tongue, all over your palate. So when you pour your solution, go ahead and taste a little bit. Do you get salt? This is the one I always worried is a little low because I made them up last night and they sit overnight. And sometimes that salt blends in with the normal salt in the water. But as long as you can taste it, you can taste salt, right? Now, when we get to milk, salt is going to be a no-no. It's going to be an off-no. We don't want to taste salt in milk. But when we get the cheese, it's going to be part of the product identity. We want salt and cheese. So we're going to have a discussion about all of what's an off-note and what should be in the product when we get there. So far we have sweet, sour, and salty. Go ahead and pass bottle number 4 around. I will give you a warning about bottle number 4 as well. Bottle number 4 is MSG in water. So this is going to represent umami. And I want you to see the difference between umami and salty. You tell me if you think there's a difference. If you don't want to taste MSG, if you get headaches from it or whatever, don't taste bottle number 4. But if you don't mind a little buzz, a little headache, a little excitement in your life, then go ahead and taste a little MSG. Is it high enough you can taste it? Yeah. See, I'm getting old. I tasted these last night. I'm like, I got to make sure everybody in the room can taste it. So do you agree that that solution tastes different than salt? Yes. Everybody agrees, right? Because some people say, well, MSG, it's just like salt. It's not just like salt. These are different taste buds and it's a different perception. How do you describe that taste? Anybody? Like what? Like broth. Yeah. That for me, the best description for it is brothy. We actually did tests years ago, and people actually, we convinced them that that was chicken broth. Yeah. That was a kind of a weak, not very good chicken broth. And all that's in there is MSG. That's it. There's nothing else in there. So it is a very brothy, savory taste. You hear the word savory all the time. And I like savory as an objective term for umami. Naturally, things like mushrooms, right? There's lots of things that are savory. And I trained a bunch of tasters over in India, and boy, they brought in all these vegetables and things that were so savory. And in China, so savory. Savory, we're not really picking up in grass-fed milk. We do pick it up in cheese, as you probably imagine. Interestingly enough, we're not going to cover beef today. We did that the last time. But we just tasted some samples and did a comparison of 100% grass-fed beef from Australia versus Eastern United States. And one of the biggest differences was how much umami the Australian beef had versus the American beef. It was really fascinating stuff. Okay, we have one more to go. I apologize for this last one because it is the one that we are naturally, we are born not liking, and it's going to be bitter. And we're using caffeine. So pass around bottle number 5. Pour yourself a little bit. Now we've got a couple issues with bitter. I'm going to let you taste it first, and then I'll tell you the couple issues we have with bitter. So if you don't want caffeine, if you have high blood pressure again, or heart issues, or you just don't want to get too excited around all your friends, then don't drink, bottle number 5, because we don't want mix that with alcohol and then dancing on the tables and stuff. Now, give you another second to. Okay. How many people in the room tasted bottle number 5 and don't taste anything? Just say, boy, that's just water. Right. So there's four or five people. It's about 15% of the population has a hard time tasting the bitter of caffeine. I'm guessing the rest of you, how many people tasted that and said, wow, knocking my socks off? Yeah, that's about a third of the group. So we have a pretty big range. Now, there's a couple things going on here. First thing that's going on, I'll get a little bit scientific here, apologize just to make the point. It has to do with solubility. So all of the other things we tasted up to this, sugars, acids, salts, glutamates, are very soluble in water. They go right in. Well, when you put it in your mouth, everything has to go in your spit first. It has to go in your saliva. So all of those things, the sugars, the acids, the umami, everything goes in your saliva, into your taste buds. You immediately say sweet, sour, salty, umami. When we're tasting cheese and milk, we look for those things early in the flavor because we know it's going to get in there fast. Bitter compounds, not just caffeine, quinine, alpha acids in the hops and beer, do not want to dissolve in water. They're not soluble. And so what happens is when you taste something that has bitter chemistry in it, it takes longer to dissolve in your spit. And because it takes longer to dissolve in your spit, you don't sense it, you don't taste it until later in the flavor. So most of you, when you first taste that solution, although this is high enough that some of you got it right away, but many of you maybe didn't get it right away, and then all of a sudden it just appears. And then it builds, and it builds, and it builds. And if you take another sip, it's going to build because more and more is dissolving in your spit. Okay, so it's a solubility issue. Now, as trained tasters, we have a second problem with bitter. And that's that once bitter chemistry, no matter what it is, if it's in the beef, if it's in the cheese, if it's in the milk, once that bitter chemistry gets in your spit, it doesn't want to leave. So it doesn't matter how much water you drink. Like if it's just dealing with high level of sweet or sour or salty, we can just drink water in between samples and we're fine. We can't do that with bitter. If you're tasting some beef or you're tasting some cheese and you get a bitter taste, the only way to get rid of that bitter taste is to get rid of your saliva. And so, yeah, I'm not suggesting we start spitting at each other, but what we do on our panel, we're not going to do it today because that's the only really bitter sample you're going to see. We like to use unsalted crackers. So you eat a cracker, you eat a piece of bread, you eat something that's going to suck up all the saliva in your mouth. You can either spit that out or swallow it, doesn't matter. And your body will produce fresh saliva without the bitter chemistry. And then you drink water to rinse that flavor out of your mouth. So that's the trick to the bitter things. Okay, again, I'm going too slow here. I got to move it along here. Believe it. Now I'm going to tell you the secret to the universe for those of you who haven't been to these sessions, okay? Those 5 things on the tongue. We only have 5 detectors on your tongue. Sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. We only taste those 5 things in your mouth. You do not taste anything else in your mouth except those 5 things. So you don't taste cherry, strawberry. You don't taste French fries, baked potato. You don't taste cheese or milk fat or butter. You don't taste those things because your tongue doesn't have a detector to taste those things. You actually have to smell those things. So somewhere in front of you is a white Lifesaver. If you could pick that up, it's hiding behind your plastic cups. Take it out of the wrapper, but don't eat it yet. Just hold on to it for a second. Okay. Now, don't do it yet, but when we get started, here's what I'm going to have you do. First thing you're going to do is you're going to hold your nose nice and tight. So everybody hold your nose nice and tight. Okay. Don't let your nose go until I tell you to. This is going to be like fireworks, by the way. Watch. This is great. Hold your nose. Now, while you're holding your nose, lick that piece of candy. Okay. And keep hold your nose. What do you taste when you lick that candy? You get sweet, because sweet, you have a detector with your tongue, right? But that's pretty much it. Take a couple big licks and then let your nose go. See, like fireworks. Did I tell you? You hear all the oohs and ahs. And they say, wow. I love it. So what just happened? Well, what happened is when you're holding your nose, you're blocking the air from your mouth cavity from getting up to the what's called the olfactory area, the olfactory bulb. Okay. So while you're holding your nose, you can taste sweet because you have sweet taste buds. We already explored that earlier, but you can't pick up the other flavor. What is the other flavor? Minty, but we're going to be better than that. We're a human, highly calibrated instruments today. So it's either spearmint, peppermint, or wintergreen. Wintergreen, yeah. But you don't taste the wintergreen. When you're holding your nose, you get the sweet, you don't taste the wintergreen. That chemistry, it's a compound called methyl salicylate, is in your mouth the whole time. But you don't have a detector in your mouth to pick up that compound, so you don't taste wintergreen. As soon as you let your nose go, you see the diagram on the right, the air from your mouth cavity goes up the retronasal passage into your nose, and you smell wintergreen. You think you taste it, but we really say you smell it. Now, this is true for everything. We're not going to do all of them, but if you see there's a bag of gumdrops in front of you, can you take out the purple one? What do you think purple is going to taste like? Can I have a bag of those, by the way? I don't even know what these ones taste like. Grape. Yeah, someone's done some of these before. Someone's done. All right, so I want you to hold your nose again, bite a little piece of that purple one off, chew it up, think about what you're getting. You should only be getting sweet. And then after a few seconds, let your nose go. These are horrible ones. They are. They're not really crystal clear. All right, first question is, if you did it, did you taste something after you let your nose go? Yeah. So it works. It's going to work for everything for the rest of your life. If you hold your nose, you're going to blank out on everything in your mouth except sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. As soon as you let your nose go, you're going to get whatever the flavor. Now, what is this flavor? Does anybody have a guess? Yeah, it's licorice, but what color? Come on, we are very black licorice, right? Because it's like anise. You know, I train tasters in distilled spirit and beer and everything, and everyone always says black licorice, black jelly beans. No one ever says ouzo or Zambuca, all those wonderful anise flavored liquors, because we like candy better than we like alcohol. Well, most people. All right, let's try the red one. Let's do another one. And by the way, it wasn't blueberry. It wasn't grape. We don't do flavor by eye. With trained panel, we do what's happening in the mouth and what's in the nose. We try to be objective. So go ahead and try the red one. Let your nose go. Happened again, right? Well, someone said cinnamon, but it's not fresh cinnamon. It's very artificial. It's like dentine gum, or the one I love is when I was a kid, they used to have these jawbreakers, right? Yes. Which one or two reasons my parents hated us. They used to give those to us and say, go ride your bike. #1 choking hazard in the world. Go ride your bike. It is artificial cinnamon, right? And by the way, we sometimes get this chemistry. We get cinnamon taste in cheese. We sometimes get cinnamon taste in milk. These are aldehydes, and aldehydes come from a lot of natural processes that happens to be cinnamaldehyde. But these are aldehydes. Again, we can't do flavor by eye. Cinnamon is brown. This gumdrop was red. Okay. I'm not going to take up the time to go through. You can taste them and ask me later, and I can tell you what the tastes are. I guarantee you, each one you do, if you hold your nose, you're only going to taste sweet. Let your nose go. You're going to get what it is. Sure.
That last one had some sour notes to it as well.
These are complicated because we're using food products. Some sour. That last one also has a category we didn't get to yet, which is mouthfeel, because you should get some sting and some burn with that cinnamon. That's a different category. That's not a basic taste on the tongue, and it's not an aromatic. It's what we call a mouthfeel, and we're going to get to that. That's the third category. But that's a great point. Just for the parents in the group, just I'll warn you, because this is the other way that our parents hated us. If you have kids that have to take medicine and they're crying and saying that tastes terrible, I don't want to take it, our parents used to say, well, hold your nose. Okay. If you tell a kid to hold their nose when they take prescription medicine, they're going to blank out on everything the pharmacist put in there, the banana, the bubble gum, the grape, to cover up the bitterness of the active. And it's going to make the medicine 100 times more bitter to them. You are torturing your kids. If you say, hold your nose when you take your medicine, it's just torture them. And our parents did it all the time, and we'd cry even more, and then they just get aggravated. Said, just turn your head over and do this. Okay. So on the top, we have a question?
Yeah, I've heard people say that they don't have a sense of smell, but I've never heard somebody be like, so that means I don't have a sense of taste. Like, I've just heard one without both.
So they can be independent. There are people born anosmic, meaning they don't have a developed sense of smell. More commonly, people can make themselves anosmic. For example, if you don't wear a helmet when you're riding a bike or skiing, 15 pounds of pressure on the back of your head, and you can move your trigeminal nerve. There's one nerve that goes from your nose to your brain, and if you move that by banging the back of your head, you'll never smell anything again. Okay, so there are people that through trauma can't smell. We also know, since this is all dealing with the nervous system, that viruses do as well. You know, COVID, people say, I can't taste anything, or I don't taste the same. Well, what happens is the COVID is attacking your nervous system, and we don't know enough yet to know how, because it doesn't make any sense. People that had real serious COVID never lost their sense of smell, and people that were asymptomatic except for the sense of smell had total loss. So we can't make any sense of it, but we know it's the virus attack in the trigeminal nerve. So viruses can give you a compromised sense of smell, but your sense of taste and your sense of smell are two separate senses, and they go to different parts of the brain and what's processed in your brain. Now, a lot of times people that are born with true genetic disorders will have more than one thing going on. So that's common. The other one that I've spent a lot of time in the past is cancer patients who undergo chemotherapy. And it's the same thing. Cancer patients undergo chemotherapy will often say, I can't taste anything anymore, or I can't taste anything that has peach in it. And it's because the chemicals are affecting the trigeminal nerve very selectively. So a lot of cancer patients, they don't get total loss of taste or smell. It's really partial. It depends on what chemicals they're getting and how that's affecting their nervous system. Great question. I could talk about that all night too, because I did so much work with cancer patients and that whole thing. For us here, the COVID one is important. And here's why it's important, because we're running into people around the world that had COVID that never knew it. Okay, they were asymptomatic, but they were trained as tasters, and they're working for companies generating data that's really important data. And all of a sudden, the data starts to look strange. And so now we're being asked to go back in and retest people to see, have they had any change in their ability to smell and taste, because we've got all the baseline data on it. And that's real. And I do think that there are people that think they're going crazy that maybe never knew they had COVID, but all of a sudden, you know, their favorite dish doesn't taste so favorite anymore. And it's probably because they're experiencing some of the effect from the virus. All right, we call the things on the tongue basic taste. So when we get to milk and cheese and I say, what basic taste do you pick up? You're going to answer either sweet, sour, salty, bitter, or umami. Those are our basic taste. If I then say, okay, but what aromatics are you picking up? We call everything we detect in the nose an aromatic. So I'm asking you, in the case of cheese, okay, I get buttery, I get fruity, I get stinky feet, I get vomit, whatever those other things are that we're actually smelling, we're not tasting on the tongue. And then there's a third category we'll cover real quick, and these are called mouthfeels. Now, we define the mouth as everything from the lips to the throat. That means lips, gums, teeth, roof of your mouth, top of your tongue, below your tongue. How does it feel? You drink Coca-Cola, has phosphoric acid. You get this feeling like your teeth are getting etched. That's a mouthfeel. We call it tooth etch. Okay. I want to play around a little bit with mouthfeel. Can you pass down the cranberry juice first? So there's a little bottle of cranberry juice. I want you to pour a little bit and think about basic taste. Think about aromatics, because we might as well take advantage of the product and practice. But also tell me what happens in your mouth when you drink the cranberry juice. Any questions while you're pouring this out?
Can you just go back to the last slide? So I can get those?
Can I go back to the last slide? Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I have no problem that these slides can be made available to you, or just email me and I'll email you a copy of the slides. This is a partial list. There are so many mouthfeels in the world. This one's going through astringent, which is puckering, dry, oily, greasy. We're going to see that when we get to cheese. We get a lot of mouth coating. Harsh or sting is kind of like with the cinnamon. Cooling, had we done a mint, we're not going to do the mint because I don't want you to have mint left in your mouth when we taste the milk. Because we're almost done. We're going to start tasting milk right after this. And I don't want you to have too much left over. Okay, so some people are still passing that around. So taste the cranberry juice. When you taste that cranberry juice, think about what basic taste do you get, what aromatics do you get, and also how does it make your mouth feel. So basic taste, when you taste it, what basic taste do you get? Sour and sweet, right? That's the most juices are sour and sweet. That's the key balance. What aromatics do you get? Do you taste cranberry?
Yeah.
Like, but not fresh. It's like cooked processed cranberries. That's not on your tongue. That's in your nose. So we would call that an aromatic. And then how does it make your mouth feel? Dry. This is one of our food reference standards for dry mouthfeel. It should also make you pucker. We call that astringent mouthfeel. It should also make you salivate. Typically, things that are sour make you salivate. All of those are mouthfeels. They're describing what's happening in our mouth. My mouth is puckering. I'm salivating. My mouth feels dry. All right, let's pass the tea down. Now I'm going to have you do the same thing with a little bit of black tea. Oh, yeah, we can give you more cups. You should be using the little cups for all of this because the big ones were for the milk, but we got more big ones if you use them. We have lots of cups. Other questions while we're passing the tea down?
So what is the response where you say cranberry juice, my mouth is like, I'm going to salivate now, even before I tried it. So is that a Pavlovian response? Is that
yeah.
response?
Yeah, so the answer was, and I'll paraphrase, the answer was, what do you call it when it tastes like cranberry or you get the mouthfeel just thinking about cranberry, but you haven't actually eaten a cranberry or drinking cranberry juice. And there are different names for it, but it's absolutely true that the brain is such a powerful organ that odors can invoke real physiological reactions. You can do it very simply. If you sit there and think about biting into a lemon, just think about biting into a lemon. You didn't actually bite into a lemon. Eventually, you're going to start to salivate. Okay. This relates to a whole different industry that I participate in called sick building syndrome. These are buildings that have certain odors in them, and people are getting symptoms. Their eyes are itching. They're breaking out in hives. They're getting nauseous. It's because their brain is processing that odor in a way that's telling them, okay, you're going to have a stomach ache. You know, you're going to throw up. You're going to have itchy eyes. I'm going to produce hives. And it's not a toxicological reaction. It's not real. It's all the brain doing it. So the flip side of that is we can train the brain to do certain things, and we have to be careful of that. On a panel like we do, Objective Tasters, we have to be careful not to have preconceived ideas because we can actually imagine we're getting things that aren't there, right? Sure.
Well, they say that about preparing your own food, like that your brain, you start to salivate, like because you're chopping the carrots, you're doing all that stuff, or cooking, you smell, and that's part of your digestive process.
Yep.
In your own preparation, that's a good thing.
It's absolutely true, but there is another thing that goes on where there are certain chemicals, you know, this is all connected, the nose, the mouth, there's certain chemicals that when you breathe it, you start to salivate. But that's because some of the chemistry is now going the other way into your mouth and it's making you salivate. So it's really not the brain, it's the chemistry that you're smelling. All right, what did you think about the tea? Basic taste. Bitter. So you get the bitter in the back of the mouth. Awesome. Aromatic. Tea. Right? Don't forget the obvious, tea, right? Maybe not very good tea. I don't know. It actually happens to be one of the number one selling teas. It's Lipton tea, right? Just regular Lipton tea, which you can say is good tea or not, but it happens to be a market leader. Pretty clean stuff. And then what about how it makes your mouth feel? Oily, astringent, and someone said dry, but this one is a very, very specific type of dry that we really care about when we think about things like grass-fed products. And we call it tannin mouthfeel. Tannin mouthfeel is a specific dry on your tongue. Specifically, when you drink tea, you should get rough tongue, almost like it's sandpaper. Your tongue dries out. The cranberry juice was dry all over. The tea, the tannins in the tea dry out your tongue. And this is something we need to focus on because in some products, consumers like it, in some products, they don't. All right, have one more surprise mouthfeel for you. It's in the little cup. I gave you some goldfish, some innocent little goldfish. So if you're brave and you don't mind tasting some innocent little goldfish, go ahead and taste a few of those goldfish. Huh? You don't think they're innocent? You know, I just did a couple of training programs out in the Midwest. That was in Ohio and Illinois, and they love these for some reason. They just like couldn't get enough of them. So for the people online, I have to tell them what's going on because they're now sitting there saying, "What the heck's going on with the goldfish?" What are you picking up in the goldfish? What's different about those goldfish? They're spicy, right? They've got a Tabasco, or it's actually Frank's Red Hot Sauce. If you buy them in the store, they co-brand it. So they impregnate the cracker with Frank's hot sauce. So for some of you that don't eat spicy food, those might seem very, very spicy. This is that 7 cent, the 7 cents, yeah, pain, right? Because this is not a basic taste. It is a mouthfeel, but it's a mouthfeel that's being driven by pain. It's the alkaloid compounds, it's the spicy compounds that are causing some burn and sting. Sure.
I put that underneath my tongue and it hurt extra. Can you talk about the underside of the tongue?
Well, first of all, for all the people out in the room, we have someone in the room that intentionally put the cracker under their tongue to make it hurt more, and now they're wondering, is there a reason for that? There actually is, and a doctor could explain it better than I can, but I will tell you that the pain receptors under your tongue are more intense than the ones above your tongue. So you actually can experience more pain. It also has a more direct connection to your blood and your nervous system. Again, I'm not a doctor, so all you people online, please don't write my wife letters and say that I don't know what I'm talking about. But you know, a lot of times doctors will have you put medicine, or if you're having a heart attack, they put the nitroglycerin under your tongue because it's a more direct pathway into your body. So that's my limited, novice, probably wrong explanation of that. And I have no explanation of why anyone put the crackers under their tongue. That's totally up to you to do that. I really do like to inflict this little bit of pain for a reason. And that's that in most products, in all of the products that we care about today, the cheese and the milk, and even in the beef, your customers, our customers don't like pain. They don't like any level of pain. If they want pain, they'll add it. They'll add pepper, they'll add spice. But in milk and in cheese, unless it's like, you know, if you intentionally made a cumin or a chili cheese, then that would be compatible. We want to be super careful. And with grass-fed milk, especially 100% grass-fed milk, we very often can get tongue sting, tongue burn, not as strong as these crackers, but noticeable. And the problem with the customers is sometimes they notice, sometimes they don't, but almost always it affects how much they want to drink. So as experts, as people evaluating the product, we need to be sensitive to that and keep an eye out for anything that's painful. Do we want people to throw all that away? Is that what we're... Okay, so my colleagues are going to come around. Sorry, I should have kept up with these for the people online. I'll try to do a better job for the people online. All right, while they're collecting this, I do want to make a differentiation. There is a difference between mouthfeel and texture. Okay, there is a difference. It's a very simple difference. When we measure mouthfeel, we're describing something that's happened to our mouth. When we measure texture, we are describing the product, not our mouth. That's the difference. Whenever we measure texture, we're describing the product. So for instance, if I'm tasting a hamburger patty, a nice 100% grass-fed beef patty, and I say, oh, this hamburger patty is hard, it's thick, it's soft, it's mushy, it's greasy, it's something else. If I'm using words to describe the hamburger or the hamburger patty, that's a texture, not a mouthfeel. Now, if I then eat that hamburger and I say, ooh, I have a waxy coating inside my mouth, that becomes a mouthfeel because now I'm describing what's happening in my mouth. So like when we develop Doritos, you know, when you say that Dorito is crunchy, that's a texture. My mouth's not crunchy, the Dorito's crunchy. right? When we work with Sara Lee Cakes and Dunkin' Donuts donuts and all of these, and we say, oh, that cake is spongy. We're describing the product, so that's a texture. Okay. Now, in the world of milk, which is going to be the first world we're going to dive into here in a second, we don't really deal with a lot of texture in milk. When we get to cheese, then we really start to talk about texture. Okay. And then if we were doing grass-fed beef, we would be diving into texture. Gum, when we developed all of Wrigley's gums, you know, one of the texture notes is how chewy is the gum. And it's a texture because we are describing the gum. But if you are on one of those panels, and I can't do those panels very well because I can't carry a beat and I can't dance, you have to chew to a metronome. So if you're a trained taster for gum, there's an instrument in the room that sets off a tone, beep, 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 and you have to chew to the beep so that everybody is releasing the same amount of flavor at the same rate so we can all agree with each other. Okay, now we're going to get to some milk tasting. So I'm going to skip through these slides. Okay, so we're going to pass out some milk. We're going to put 1 mason jar of the first sample at the end. If you could open it, you only need about 1/3 of a cup. You don't need a ton. Pour yourself a little bit of milk. First thing I want you to do when you pour your sample, smell it, taste it, and on your score sheet next to sample number 1, put an X on one of those faces. If you really like the milk, you're going to click off one of those big happy faces called degrees of liking. If you don't like the milk, you click off a sad face. The more that you don't like it, the bigger the frown. Everybody understand? Now, just so you know, on the right, the furthest point to the right, that's the greatest tasting milk I ever had in my life. My hair's standing up. My hands would be up. I'm just so excited. It's perfect. That would be like the best tasting milk for you. On the left, it's hard to see here, but that sad face, those are actually teardrops. That's so bad it makes you want to cry, and you don't want to ever drink that milk again. And in the middle, and I'm going to ask you to try not to use the middle one just as a flat mouth. That's neutral. It means like, well, I kind of don't care either way. I don't like it. I don't not like it. You can use that if you want, but you can only put an X on one face. You either like it or don't. Now, this is called hedonic testing. This is the 9-point standard hedonic scale called degrees of liking or degrees of not liking, because we can do a better job of correlating data against the instrument if we know, if you say you like something, how much do you like it? Do you just like it a little bit or do you really love it? And this is the best scale to use. So you're going to taste that first sample. You're going to put off a face. On the line under it, I want you to write a few words. If you liked it, what did you like about it? I don't say, oh, I liked it because it tasted awesome. Well, it does because you like it. I liked it because it had this taste or it had this. So try to be objective. And if you didn't like it, just as important to us, tell us what you didn't like about it. And then what I'm going to do is I want to talk about what it actually tastes like after you do that. And we do want to collect these sheets afterwards because all of this, I'm going to give you 6 milk samples. All of these samples are a good demonstration for the topic, but also they're all part of our grass-fed milk study. So this is additional data for us to get from farmers. Even though farmers, a lot of the farmers are a little bit unique when it comes to what they like and don't like. Right? They're not always your typical consumer. Okay, everyone had a chance to smell and taste and put down whether they liked it. Okay. Now, tell me something about that milk. First of all, how many people scored it on the liking side? Pretty much everybody, right? Did anybody score it on the not liking side? Oh, interesting. A couple of people on the not liking side. So the not liking side, what kind of things did you write down? Not much of an aftertaste? So you want more. You want it to linger, okay?
Actually, the opposite. I said that the immediate taste was a bit sour. Aftertaste was better.
Okay.
I felt a little off. Not like
A little bit off?
Not off as in spoiled, but there was like an off flavor.
Yeah. Okay. And those of you that liked it, so a little bit of an off flavor, but not spoiled, just something that wasn't right. Those of you that liked that sample, what did you like about it? Go ahead.
I thought I guess we're talking about the texture. I thought the texture was nice.
The texture was nice.
The
So
actual, not necessarily the mouthfeel, the way it made my mouthfeel, but like the actual texture.
the thickness.
It wasn't too thick. It wasn't too watery. I found the aftertaste or the after to be a little bit on the watery side, but good texture.
Okay, perfect.
I don't like milk in general.
Okay.
So, judging this is very hard for me. I don't like milk in general because of the aftertaste.
Okay.
So the
So-
aftertaste wasn't too bad compared to what I'm comparing it to in previous.
Right.
But it felt refreshing.
So if we, and I'll get to you, wait a minute, if we were running a consumer session, we were doing this with our consumers, we would conduct what's called a screener. And we'd be looking for people that we want to get information from. And if someone's not a milk drinker, they're not part of our target audience, then we would screen them out. We want to have them come to the session, right? But I appreciate your feedback that even not liking milk, and by the way, I don't like cat food, but I was a very effective cat food taster in my day. Let me tell you, I could taste cat food with the best of them, and vomit too. All right, other comments from the back?
Okay, so you had us do that painful thing right before.
Yeah.
So I would expect us all to be relieved by that milk sample.
Yeah.
But it was like super creamy, refreshing, sweet, and the only like negative flavor I could sense is there's this thing when it gets ultra pasteurized, it tastes a little cooked. It can be
Cooked.
confused with creaminess.
Okay.
I sense that a little bit. It's like it did taste a little harsh
Okay.
for pasteurization.
Okay. For the virtual people out there, or I should say virtual people, that's not a good term, is it? It's the people that are joining us virtually. The comment was that we just tasted that sample pretty quickly after having that cracker that had all the spice, and that spice might be interfering. In fact, it might be causing people to like this sample even more because it's relieving some of that pain. The reality is that milk does relieve some capsaicin pain and hot spice pain, but usually you need something, it's either fatty or something that's a little bit acidic. Other points before I tell you what that sample was?
The aftertaste is like almost similar to the tea, like just
Okay.
dry on the tongue.
So a little bit more dry. I did think it was dry on the tongue. So just so you know, that first sample was Monument milk, whole milk from, I think they're Vermont. I think most of the ones I picked are Vermont because they're the ones in our study. In our study that we're doing, it tends to be one of the cleaner milks, doesn't have a lot of off flavor. It tends to taste like milk. Maybe it doesn't excite all the butter lovers, the cream on top lovers, the people that want more complex, but this is more kind of mainstream. Average person says, that's a pretty good milk. I could drink that. And that's basically what the group just said. Now, there's always going to be people that are sensitive to one thing or another. And like you were saying a little bit off, when I taste these blind on panel, we always taste blind. We don't know what the samples are. I can always pick out Monument milk because there's always something a little bit off to me that is a little bit on the fatty acid side. So we talk about fatty acids like butyric and isovaleric. That's not quite vomit and not quite dirty feet underarm, but it's kind of getting there. You can kind of pick it up a little bit. All right, we got sample number 2. I want you to do the same thing. I want you to pour a little, taste it, click off a face. Do you like it or not? And write down a couple of words. I know, I tell too many stories and then I get behind. And we do, but the cheese will go fast. No, actually it goes slower. I want to tell my vomit story, but Elaine said, don't tell the vomit story when you're in there because then everyone's going to throw up in the room. I like to tell stories for the virtual crowd while we're waiting. People are actually in the room now tasting. Someone came in the room earlier and said, "Oh, I want your job," and I said, "Yeah, but you don't know all the things that we smell and taste."
He said cat food, they'd be like, on second thought.
If you go back to National Geographic magazine, 1985, September, they did an article on the sense of smell. It's a cover article. If you look in it, you'll see me in one of the pictures. But if you turn to the page before, you're going to see a bunch of women with their noses stuck in a bunch of guys' underarms doing underarm movement. And that was not a fun job. But go back and look at that picture and you'll say, yeah, I don't want to do that. Okay, sample number 2. How many people liked it? About the same, maybe a little less. How many people did not like it? So more people did not like this one, but still pretty close to the first one. Tell me something about it, whether you liked it or not. Was that different than the first one?
Definitely.
It's more buttery. Someone said it was more buttery.
Dry.
It's a more dry. Little cheesy, little more creamy aftertaste. So it's more complicated, more fatty, more stuff there, right? more stuff going on. And I heard a little bit about more aftertaste. Okay. Now, just so you know, that was the first of the 100% grass-fed. Now, this is Organic Valley, 100%. And in our data, when you look at our data, you'll see that it always performs pretty clean in the market. If you sit there and think about it, if you don't eat anything else right now, you just sit there, that flavor is going to last a little bit. And that flavor sometimes can be a little grassy tasted. Sometimes it can be a little barny, animal-y. Sometimes it can be a little Band-Aid-y. So there are different characteristics that could come from the 100% grass-fed, but it doesn't have as clean a wash as the first sample. Okay. But of the 100%, you might think this one actually has the shortest aftertaste. So now let's go to sample number 3. Go ahead and pour yourself a little bit, taste it, mark off a happy or sad face. One of the things we find with 100% grass-fed milk is that most of the effect is in aftertaste.
Yeah.
So most of the effect, now that wasn't true 6 years ago. When we started the study 6 years ago, first thing we did was go across the country and taste 100% grass-fed milk across the country. And we saw lots of off notes. So as soon as you put it in your mouth, you picked up some strange flavors. And we saw lots of aftertaste. But I'm going to show you an amazing slide in a little bit that shows you how far we've come as an industry with 100% grass-fed milk. And now really it's about the aftertaste. It's about managing things to get a shorter aftertaste. Remember those flavor leadership criteria I showed you earlier. Customers, all customers want shorter aftertaste. They want it to disappear so they can drink more. All right, so click off a face, write a couple words. Maybe we'll go straight into the cheese just to make sure we get the cheese tasted. And then if I have time, I'll show the slides. Apologize to the virtual people, but I'll go through that fast at the end. All right, as you're tasting that, does it taste different? Different than the first two, right? Different than the second one. How many people like this one? Okay, still like it. Everybody still like it. And I'm not going to give you any, these are all market samples, by the way. We're not giving you anything funky that I changed. These are all stuff that you could go in the store and buy. You said it was different. How is this one different? Even more buttery? Thicker?
It was like kind of sticky or gluey.
It's thicker, a little tacky, sticky mouthfeel. And then sit there and think about the aftertaste. Think about the flavor that's lingering afterwards. Okay. So this one now is the second of the 100% grass-fed milks. This is Maple Hill. Maple Hill, over the course of our 6-year study, tends to be the one that has a longer aftertaste. So lingers a little bit longer than the other 100%. It's one that we like to practice aftertaste with for grass-fed milk. So if you want to practice, if you leave here and say, hey, I'm going to practice with other people at my farm or at home, Organic Valley is kind of the one that you say, okay, that's a little bit cleaner, a little bit less aftertaste. Maple Hill would be, well, this one's got a little bit more going on at 1, 2, 3 minutes after you're done taking the taste. Okay, now we're going to go through and we're going to do sample number 4. We have 6 total, and then we're going to go right into the cheeses because I'm worried we only have till 3 o'clock. I want to make sure we get through all the samples.
Both of these last 2 brands are bringing in milk from multiple farms.
They are. That's a good point. So
what do they do to control these kinds of?
They're trying to blend as best they can, and they're trying to collect data at the farm level, which is one of the projects we have going on. The comment was that the first one is milk that comes all from one farm, right? Monument Farm is one farm, I believe. The second 2 samples are collecting milk from multiple farms. So there is a difference, not just in the fact that they're 100% grass-fed, but that these are now blending multiple farms. And blending is a really tricky thing that we have to be careful of. We had a situation at the beginning of 2024 in New York where we had one farm out of 13, 14 farms that had an off flavor. And when they blended it with the other 13, 14 farms, it was still there and it didn't change in intensity. And then when it went to market, it was still there and people picked it up in the market. And it has to do with what's called the dose response. Some off flavors dilute out very easily. Depends on the chemistry. You can dilute it once, twice, 3 times and it's gone. Some off flavors are very persistent. Doesn't matter how much you dilute it, it's still there. It's still there. It's still there. And unfortunately, that's what this taste was.
Does pasteurization change the flavor?
Yes, these are all factors.
Makes it-
And I'll get to some of that at the end. All right, did you like this one? Not like this one? What do you think?
Good.
How many like it? Okay, again. We got a lot of farmers in the room. I could tell. Is this one different, the same? Are we getting like redundant now, boring?
It's more similar to the first.
More similar to the first one.
Tastes like
A little bit lighter, a little more similar to the first one. No aftertaste or a lot of aftertaste? Shorter aftertaste. This is another interesting one. This is another 100% grass-fed milk. This is out of New York. It's produced by a company called Family Farmstead. Cream on top. It's A2 milk. And some of the data we're going to show you is from them, because this is the group that's collaborating. We're actually collecting individual farm milk, then tasting the blended milk, then tasting stuff that goes to market, so we can connect the dots back to the farm and figure out what's going on at the farms and how is it affecting flavor. Okay, 2 more milks, because then we'll get onto the cheese.
I have a question while everybody's drinking milk.
Sure, I love questions while people are drinking, and so do the people online.
Have you ever been to Swordcrest Dairy in Connecticut? They use single batch products from their cows who were up to like 12 years old. And with both cows and chickens, as they get older, their bodies become better at producing compounds.
Interesting.
So do you know anything about single animal products?
I do not. So the question from the back of the room for the folks online is, had I ever been to Thorncrest Dairy down in Connecticut, who does single animal or single batches?
Caramels, like, it's like single barrel whiskey, but
Sing-
caramel from a 12-year-old Jersey.
Single barrel whiskey, but caramel from a 12-year-old Jersey. I'm gonna have to go, because you're making that sound phenomenal for me. And I just got to get some grass-fed ice cream and put that caramel on it, and I'll be all set. I apologize. I have not. Most of the work that we've done to date, and it's actually a disadvantage, and it's the reason we're doing workshops like this, has been with big international producers. So it's really big stuff. And now over the last 6 years, bringing all of that knowledge and technology to the local farm level. So I don't know a lot of the local farmers. I haven't been able to visit. There's only one of me. So, but if you have interesting experiences like that you want to share with me, I would love to know so that I can go. The work we're doing now, the smallest we have, Organic Valley blends a lot of farms. Family Farmstead, when we started out, was 6 or 8 farms, and now they're up to almost 20 farms. So they're growing like crazy, like the industry's going. All right, what about this sample that I just passed out?
Oh, sure.
Someone said really good. Do you agree? What do you think about this one? You like this one better than some of the previous ones? Some of you? Yeah. So what is it about it? What do you, those of you who think this is really good, why is it really good?
I think it's a little bit sweet.
A little bit more sweet,
It's balanced.
balanced. It's got some more harmony of flavor. Good job. I would argue it is a little bit more balanced. Okay. Well, one of the reasons that this one is different is that we now are not 100% grass-fed. Now we're pasture-raised, and we do see when we look at our quality maps, we see lower quality gets 100% grass-fed, no grain, no adjunct, no anything. Pasture-raised kind of in general is a little bit higher quality, and we define quality as what the customer wants and likes. Shorter aftertaste, less mouthfeel. And then when you get to product where they have grain in the diet and other things that tends to get rid of some of the grass-fed taste, those tend to meet the needs of the general consumer better.
So like, my uncle had a farm and I used to drink milk like straight out of the bulk tank, right?
Right.
And when it's that cold, and I sort of have that like nostalgic memory type thing, that now the very first one and that one that we just had, almost I can get like the metal of the bulk tank.
Yeah.
Is that more like a seeded memory that's influencing my taste, or
I-
because it's so cold, or am I actually tasting some of like the metal from the container that they store it in for food?
So the question in the group for those out online was that person in the group grew up on a farm, used to drink milk ice cold right from the bulk tank, and a couple of these samples reminded her. She almost thinks she can taste the metal tank and other things in there, wondering if that's her brain playing tricks on her or if there's something about those samples that would actually cause that. I think it's a combination of the above. I think certainly some of that experience. Temperature really does invoke memory. It can. You happen to have chose a couple that I think do have a little bit more of the butyriciness. And when we pasteurize milk, we get rid of some of that butyriciness. So you were drinking raw milk. That was coming right out of the bulk tank. These are all pasteurized. So some of that butyric note that a couple of us thought was in the first one, and a little bit of that in this in the last one might be clicking that. I don't know for sure. I think it's complicated. All right, we had one more sample. You got that one? You taste it, write down how much you like it or not like it. How many people like that last sample? Ooh, the number went down. About half of you, maybe a little bit more. Those of you that didn't like this last one or liked it less, maybe you liked them all, but what was it about this one that made you think twice about whether you liked it? Sure.
This one, to me, tasted like it had the most flavor.
The most flavor.
Like of all of them, it felt, yeah, like it. I like kind of more interesting stuff.
Yep.
And it tasted like it had more going on.
Okay. Thank you.
The aftertaste was just like yogurt.
So the aftertaste was like yogurt. So it was sour and it lasted longer. Other reactions to this one? Anybody else write things down? Didn't like?
I like it. Oh, sorry. I don't know if it's delayed flavor.
Oop.
You kind of felt a little, or the flavor was a little delayed.
A little delayed, little flavor lag. Awesome. I love that answer.
I liked it, but it felt like it coated my mouth in fat.
Yeah.
Coated your mouth in fat. All right. So this one is another one. Sure.
Can I ask a question from online?
Sure.
From the web? That versus HTST pasteurization effects on consumer perception. Like, do you think that consumers can tell the difference between that pasteurization and HTST pasteurization?
It's a great question. If they're done correctly, we think consumers can notice a difference. The question is whether it means anything to them. Does it affect their overall liking? Does it affect their consumption? We don't know. We don't know for sure. We definitely are seeing, even in our study between Family Farmstead and Organic Valley, there's two entirely different types of pasteurization, and yet both are equally accepted by customers out in the market. So we don't have enough information yet. They definitely taste different. We can definitely taste the difference. The question is, what does that mean to the end user? And do some consumers latch onto one particular taste versus another? But we haven't seen anything that says that one is a big negative, that we should be doing something differently. This last sample, by the way, was another Vermont product called Sweet Rowan. This is a very polarizing sample. And I threw this on at the end because just what happened in this room, some people liked it, some people loved it, some people didn't like it. Some people thought they were picking up something strange. One person mentioned flavor lag, meaning I had to wait a little bit for the flavor of the milk. We've experienced that with this. We're not quite sure. I will give you my personal expert 42-year opinion. I think this is the only sample of the group that we're seeing a packaging material effect, because this particular plastic bottle is notorious for migration of off flavor into fatty products like milk. And it's not that you would necessarily pick up a plastic taste, although if you go back, you might, but it's at a level that will disrupt other things. It will disrupt the order that you perceive things. It will disrupt the balance. It will disrupt how creamy or not. Sometimes it can potentiate it. Sure, up the back.
What's the difference between that plastic bottle and the other plastic bottle?
Totally different type of plastic.
Like what is it?
I think that Sweet Ronan, oh, we don't have the bottles here. I think those are PE and not HDPE,
Okay.
but they're a different bottle. I have to go back and look. I apologize.
Is it like a white bottle? It's actually white plastic bottle. So it's the white plastic versus like.
Yeah, but it's actually, there's a whole science in the plastic resins that are used for these bottles. So all of the big companies that make the resins that get blown into these molds, Exxon, Phillips, Chevron, all of them, they all have trained taste panels that evaluate their plastic in contact with fatty foods and acidic foods and whatnot. And we did a lot of that work. I trained most of those panels, and we did a lot of the work tasting everything from Coca-Cola plastic bottles to milk jugs to orange juice jugs. And the quality of the material, it can even be the same material, but it's a different quality. And in the world of off flavors, it doesn't take much to taste. You know, I didn't say this earlier, but your nose is more sensitive than in any instrument in the world. Okay? About a third of what we're going to taste in the cheese, no instrument in the world can pick up. But you can taste it because your nose can pick it up. Okay? So little differences in quality of the material of the package can make a big difference in what it tastes like. One more question back there?
Yeah, in terms of the materials thing, were there any milks that have been part of your taste test or other ones that are bottled in glass and
Yeah.
have a significantly different effect?
Well, glass is actually an interesting one. The answer to your question is yes. We have Stratford or Stafford. Is it Stratford or Stafford? It comes in glass, and you would think in a glass bottle, okay, glass is a great package for fatty things. But there's another issue going on there in that those are reusable. And so that means they have to go back, they have to be cleaned, they have to be sanitized. And whenever you introduce all of those processes, again, going to that trace chemistry discussion, then you raise the risk that something ends up in the milk that's not from the glass, but from how you clean the glass or how you stored the glass or how you did whatever. So packaging is a big deal, and we're going to be doing some packaging this year. We have a FAFO grant through Organic Valley, and its whole focus is on packaging in the market for milk. So we'll have more information on that in the future. All right, I have less than half an hour, but I'm gonna, and again, I apologize because we always try to cram it as much as we can. We're gonna start the cheese. So the way we're gonna do the cheese is there's a separate sheet, and we're gonna kind of rapid fire through these. I apologize, I just walked out of the screen for the folks online. These are going to be in little medicine cups. Smell it first. If you don't want to taste it, don't taste it. Some of them you're going to need the spoon that's in front of you. Go ahead and taste sample number one, and let's talk about the flavor of cheese, because that's really this section now is just talking about what we learned today and how we're going to apply it to cheese so that we can research cheese and grass-fed cheese and artisan cheese versus mainstream. So I want you to taste that first sample. I want your opinion on that sheet. Write down how much you like it. Yep, we'll see you. And if you liked it or didn't like it, why you liked it or didn't like it. Sure.
When you taste cheeses on a panel, are they tasted at refrigerated or room temperature?
When we're tasting it, it's usually room temperature, because usually by the time we cut it up and we get it out. Now, a lot of the storage temperature is cool. We're not storing it at room temperature. But most of the time it's going to be at room temperature. In fact, I hate to say it, but even the milk panels we have, when we end up tasting it on panel, they're not warm, they're not room temperature, but they're not ice cold either. They're cool, right? And we try to manage it and monitor it so everything's the same temperature, because that's the big deal. If we want to compare samples, it's everything's safe. And yeah, the way the customer uses milk when they drink it, sometimes it's ice cold right out of the fridge, but a lot of times they pour a glass of milk and 2/3 of it is close to room temperature, you know, by the time they're halfway through again, throw it to it. Okay, so now we're on to, I'm going to go through these slides and come back to some of this later. I want to show you a couple things. We're on to cheese tasting. All right. What do you think about that first cheese? You like it? Yum. Someone said yum. You know, a woman I learned to taste from a company called Arthur D. Little was quoted in the Wall Street Journal many years ago. I think it was in the 70s. Yucky doesn't tell me anything. And yum doesn't tell me. That was her quote in the Wall Street Journal, because, okay, we're a highly calibrated instrument now, right? So now we want to talk about what is it about that cheese that you liked? Tell me something. It's different than the milk, right?
Sure. Right.
Okay, so let's talk basic taste. What basic taste are you picking up in cheese?
Salt.
Definitely salt. And it's got a comfortable amount of salt. You definitely get salt, right?
Yes.
It has some sweet, but not a lot of sweet. Most of the sweet is in the nose. It's what we call aromatic sweet. And there's not a lot of bitter, right? You got umami, a little bit of savoriness. Okay. A little crumbly, so that would be a texture. All right, so the first cheese was Cabot Extra Sharp. It is one of the mainstreams for New England. You know, the people love cheddar in New England. We could get into a discussion if you want later. I'll be staying here tonight, so if you want to pull me aside and have a cheese discussion. There is flavor segmentation for cheese, for lots of products. So there are people that love super stinky cheese or super buttery cheese or super something. But the biggest segment of consumers would be consuming something like this, something that's very blended, it's rich, it's full bodied, it's very clean, it's got a short aftertaste. All right, let's do sample number 2. See, the next one, what we do is, because sometimes we do it, we send out a list of people joining virtually and have them pick up some stuff so they can taste along as we're doing this. So we'll make a note. All right, sample number 2, the same or different than the first one? Ooh, that was a loud different. So how is it? Someone said, but it's still good. Well, we're going to see a lot of that. They're different, but they're still, as a consumer, you like them. So how is this different? Let's talk as an instrument. What's different? Texture-wise, it's a little not as brittle, maybe a little softer, a little creamier texture-wise. What about from a flavor standpoint? Not as salty, lower salt.
Where do like histamines come in to play?
As far as
like that, you know, like sometimes you get an aged cheese. This didn't feel like an aged cheese, but the milk sometimes gives you that like bitter but almost stinging sensation.
Yeah.
As far as like a mouthfeel is concerned.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The question is where do histamines come in and how does that affect this sample? I think this sample, it's not that effect. It's not about the histamines. But I do think there's an issue with complexity.
Yeah.
And I think the first one was a bit more complex than the second one, meaning there's more going on in the first one than the second one. The second one's still clean. You still have cheese flavor, although I would argue the flavor of the cheese is a little different. Maybe the first one was a little bit more buttery lined. This one is more isovaleric acid, which is a little bit more on the sweaty kind of side with a little bit of the milky. The second cheese was Whitney from Jasper Hill, which actually just won a whole bunch of awards at some big cheese tasting. And it is different. It is a hard rind cheese. It is not as pronounced as some people would say as the sharp cheddar. I mean, the extra sharp part of the cheddar is part of that complexity, part of the maturity, getting to the histamines you're talking about. The first one really had a little bit more mature taste to it. But wait till you get sample number 3. Let's pass around sample number 3. Write down some comments about sample number 3. So when we're tasting cheese, what we're looking that's going to vary is salt and sour. That's the 2 basic tastes. We really don't worry about sweet. Bitterness is going to come in, but that's going to be an issue at times. But we're really focusing on the salt taste and the sour. From an aromatic standpoint, we're trying to differentiate, is it more butyric-y, which is the buttery, kind of milky taste, or is it isovaleric, which is stinky feet, armpit, type of thing. In these first 2 cheeses, the Cabot was more the butyric-y side, the Whitney was more butyric, but also a little bit more of that isovaleric. All right, sample number 3. You have a question or a comment about sample 3? All right, so what do you think about sample number 3? Do you like it?
Can I have some more?
Can I have some more? Lots of thumbs up. People online can't see it. Apparently, sample number 3 is a winner so far. When I look at these happy faces, they check off that one on the far right where they're so happy. They're like, that's the greatest cheese you could ever give me. Why was it so good? What did you like about that one?
Intensity of the flavor.
So I heard 2 different things, and you're both correct. One is intensity. It's a stronger tasting cheese, right? And the other one was its complexity, the age, which is part of its complexity. It just tastes like a more mature cheese. I did a lot of cheese work in the Netherlands, and old Gouda cheese is one of my favorites. But it gets to a point, it's like Parmesan, where you can only eat a small piece. It's so rich and so complicated. And that's where this is getting. This is getting like, okay, maybe the first one, I could slice that up and melt the 2 pounds on my pasta or something. I'll be fine. But this one, and now we got slots going on, and we're going to sip and savor it. This one is actually another Cabot product being produced with Jasper Hill. It's the Cabot cloth bound. And I did give it to you because one of the things we do look for in cheese is maturity, flavor development, and maturity. Now, maturity doesn't always mean the cheese is older. Some cheeses can taste more mature, but they're younger. And some cheeses can be really old and they never get a mature taste. I made that mistake when I was working in the Netherlands. I thought I was a smart guy. I bought a bunch of young cheese wheels at the airport, brought them home, and I left them for a year in my fridge. Well, first of all, they were hard as a rock by the time I opened them, and they didn't have any mature cheese taste. You have to, if you're a cheesemaker, you know what I'm talking about. All right, we're going on to sample number 4. We only got 3 samples, and then I want to show you a couple quick slides for the online people, and then we'll wrap this puppy up, and those of us in the hotel can go eat cheese and drink beer and do whatever fun things we want. Okay, so for the people online, the sample number 4, actually that one you have to use a spoon, right? You have to use a spoon for it. It's a softer cheese, and it's generating lots of discussion. I'm excited to hear what the discussion is. Okay, what do you think about sample number 4? Tell me something. Sulfur. So what do you mean by sulfur? I love sulfur, by the way, because I'm a chemist. I have 2 degrees from the university. I'm a chemist and a geologist. So you want to talk chemistry to me all day. But for the rest of the group, when you say sulfur, what do we mean? I'll tell you what we mean. I know what you're. It's Barney, but it's also vegetable like broccoli. It's vegetable like green beans, maybe. Sometimes it's corn, but this one's really not corn. I think this one's got more of the broccoli, cabbagey. Those are all kind of sulfur compounds that taste very vegetable-like. What else, how else would you describe this cheese for the people online that aren't tasting it?
I actually got bacony.
Bacony. I love bacony. Someone said it's like bacon. And the part of bacon that I love is the kind of smoky, woody part of bacon, which I think you can taste in here. And I'll come back to that in a minute. What other words would you say to describe this cheese? Fatty. High fat. Old. How many people like this cheese? About half the group. So it is a polarizing cheese. And the guy who makes this cheese told me when I first met him, he goes, Roy, maybe you won't love it the first taste. It's going to grow on you. And I didn't believe him because first taste, I was like, eh. Now, as a consumer, I absolutely love this cheese. Okay, so what this cheese was this was another one from Jasper Hill. This is their Harbison. It actually is one of their best sellers. Different type of cheese from a texture standpoint, because now we're dealing with something that's softer and tacky. So from a texture standpoint, it's very different. We also have the introduction of a piece of spruce wood around the outside of it. So when you get that smoky bacon, if you get a little Christmas tree taste, it depends on where you scooped it out of. Some of you got it right next to the spruce, and you might even say it tastes like a Christmas tree. Some of you taste it from the middle, and it would be less of that woody. We have to battle with that on our panel. We have to give everyone pieces from multiple places to try to get a uniform sample. Okay. All right. Sample number 5 and 6, and then I'm going to show a couple slides. Now, since the theme of this is grass-fed, we focus more grass-fed on the milk than the cheese. Seeing and picking up grass-fed flavor in artisan cheeses is not an easy thing to do, because it doesn't really carry through the same way it does in the milk. In the milk, it sticks out. It sticks out in the aftertaste, and it's easy to pick up in the flavor. What we find with cheese is it's hit or miss. Sometimes the cheese process and the microbes potentiate the grass-fed taste, and we end up with some Barney, animal, sweaty taste in the cheese. That's not from the microbes. It's not from the cheese process. It's actually from the milk. And sometimes we taste the milk going in, and we pick up some grass-fed taste, but then we don't see it in the cheese, because the cheese process is so complex, it tends to buffer it or absorb some of that flavor. All right, what did you think about sample number 5? Yummy. How would you describe it? Lacking? Oh, lactic. Oh, lactic, like sour lactic. Give me some other words. Tangy, acetic acid. So this cheese is very sour, makes you pucker, gives you some astringency, some mouthfeel. What about aromatics? Does this taste like the other cheeses, or has this got something different going on? So what's different? Goat. And what I would say is animal. This is in fact from Vermont Creamery. This is in fact a goat cheese. And you'll notice on our score sheets, when you look at our data, if you ever go in and read reports, we have terms like animal sweat, sweaty. Goaty is one. This one is less goaty and more just animally. You can tell it's goat cheese. And by the way, goat cheese in general is less blended than cheddar and some of the other cheeses that get a little bit different complexity of chemistry that helps create balance and harmony. All right, one more cheese, and then I want to show a few slides for everybody. Sure.
Where does the raw versus pasteurized come into these? Because like this last one being like Bailey or like the other one being Whitney, those being raw milk cheeses versus Artisan being pasteurized. They're all grass fed, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I know that affects flavor. Does everyone else know that affects flavor?
So the question that somebody was asking while you're tasting is, how does the fact that the milk is either raw or pasteurized before they make the cheese affect the flavor? Does it affect the flavor? The answer is yes, it does affect the flavor, and it depends on the cheese, and it depends on the particular batch of cheese, actually, depending on how the microbes, it's a natural process when it goes into the caves. Whether or not raw milk versus pasteurized milk behaves differently when it comes to grass-fed taste, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen the difference between something, hey, if it's raw milk, we're going to end up with more grass-fed taste than the cheese. It's much more dependent on the cheese type and the complex process with the microbes. But it's a great point, and anybody wants to talk about that, we can talk about that afterwards as well, that raw milk versus pasteurized milk is a decision that cheesemakers make. The two that, and I think you're correct, that the Whitney and the last cheese are made with raw milk, I think.
They are.
And so those are a little different than the cheese. All right, this last one, what did you think?
Great.
Okay, it's great, but it's different. And how is it different? Okay, so we get some bitter. That was a very, very good pickup. We definitely get some bitter. What else do we get in the last one? Funky, a different mouthfeel, moldy, musty, moldy. Yeah, for the people online, this last one was a blue cheese. It was another Jasper Hill. Again, these are all parts of our studies, so we decided to collect a little extra data on them. But it demonstrates our point, because what we want to show you is what are the things that we are objectively trying to measure in cheese, whether it comes to grass-fed products or not. Basic taste, sour and salty. We want to look for the aromatics, like is it butyric, buttery, vomit, or is it sweaty? We want to look for other things that should or shouldn't be in the profile. Blue cheese, it's okay to have musty, moldy type notes. People expect that in blue cheese. They see it in blue cheese. It's almost, part of the promise we give them. But other cheeses shouldn't have that musty, moldy. And so we got to think about those aromatics. And then we got to think about the mouthfeels. And some of you mentioned the creaminess. Cheeses tend to have a range of mouth coating. Some of them barely coat your mouth. Some will coat your mouth so much, it's almost like you got grease inside your mouth and on your lips. Texture notes in cheese, we're looking at how hard or soft the cheese is. That cheddar was hard to the first bite. The Harbison is like pudding almost, right? There's some times where that Harbison is really thin. So there's some texture notes here. There's brittle. Is it cohesive? The Whitney tends to be less brittle. It's still firm, but it's less brittle. Whereas that Clothbaum one, you could break that up in your fingers. So that's super brittle. Those are texture notes. Okay. All right. I want to take a step back for 2 seconds because I do want to just show you a couple of slides. So when we measure, let me go back to this. When we measure on a trained panel milk, I want to go back to grass-fed milk. We have selected certain characteristics that we train people to measure because we know they are important for, number one, differentiating one milk from another, but also they are important to the end customer. That's why we measure these. We don't measure everything in milk. So in milk, we measure balance and fullness and total flavor, dairy intensity. Grass-fed milk, we're looking for some very unique things. SWA, which stands for sweet urinamine. That's like a wet baby diaper. Right? You ever pick up a baby that the diaper's soaked and you get that sweet urine smell? Well, sometimes we get that in grass-fed milk. Other people would describe that as grainy or almost Cheerio milk. Think of if you put Cheerios in milk, but then took the Cheerios out, it smelled the milk and taste it. We get that quite often in grass-fed milk. For basic taste, we're measuring sweet and sour and bitter. Mouthfeel is primarily creaminess. Others, it depends. Grass-fed milk, when we have a bad month, it's fermented fruit. It's Band-Aidy. It's or medicinal. Sometimes it's like chloroseptic. Sometimes it's musty, moldy. We get musty in milk that's in there. So there's a range of others that we can get in 100% grass-fed milk. But where we really focus it as an instrument on grass-fed milk is in the aftertaste. And it really doesn't matter what it is, it's how strong is it. Because grass-fed milk tends to leave you more intense aftertaste than regular milk. And so that's what we're measuring. So we have a score sheet that we use. We have a standard intensity scale. We didn't spend a lot of time on that today. We know intensity drives what people like or not. You cannot see these numbers. The people online can. But what this table is, these are individual farms that we collected milk from, raw milk. We pasteurized that milk and we tasted it blind. And these are the average scores for each of those flavor attributes I just told you. And in order for a consumer to see a difference, that average number has to be more than half a unit difference for them to mean something. And what I'm showing here is that you can't see is that pretty much that whole table, we're not seeing half unit differences. Meaning that even at the farm level at this point, for this particular group of farms, this dairy, that they have a lot of consistency farm to farm, even before they blend. That wasn't true 4, 5, 6 years ago, but this is what we're seeing more and more in our company. Sure.
That's a good question. We have a question online that might relate to this. How would you recommend small processors get flavor feedback?
So that's a great question, and I'll give you a couple of answers. First of all, if they're close to where we are at UVM, we are always open to helping and tasting. And I know on a personal level, I taste milk all the time. People ask me to taste. There really are no labs out there that you can easily send milk to and get flavor results. That said, we've got educational programs in place to teach people, like the person asking the question. We are putting in a proposal this Monday with SARE to spend the next 2 years training at the farm level. So just so you know, if we get this work, we're going to be reaching out to all of you saying, do you want to be trained as tasters on your farm? Because that's what we want to do. We think educating people to the farm level so that you can then run experiments on your farming practices and figure out what it does. So that's the best solution that we have. Sure.
Did you do that with cheese as well?
Yep. Yeah, this is going to be, well, this first one is going to be milk, cheese, and beef. We're going to be training those types of farms. Sure.
Let's kind of shift back to this graph, but did you guys do the same thing before you pasteurized it at the raw level to see if there's any variation?
We have done it, and we have seen some variation. It's very little. Usually if something's wrong, it's going to be wrong before pasteurization, it'll be wrong after pasteurization, unless it was the pasteurization that screwed up. We tend to, at the university, only taste pasteurized milk. So we have, I didn't show it earlier, but we have our own laptop pasteurizer. All of those farm samples, we pasteurize before we taste them. We're not tasting raw milk, just so you know. We have a way to create quality indices, and I can go through this at some point if somebody wants. But bottom line is, I want to show this graph because this summarizes the biggest message today for grass-fed milk. What you see here on the left-hand side is what we call a quality index. It's something that we developed based on what consumers around the world like and don't like. We know it's real. We know it works. We used it to help develop Dunkin' Donuts coffee and Budweiser and all these products. We're now using it for grass-fed milk. We know that as that quality index goes up, consumers will like it more and they'll drink more of it. Back in February 24, when we started the last round of USDA testing on the project we have, the quality was down there. And over the quarters, all of these quarters since then, you see that the quality of the flavor of the grass-fed milk has continually gone up. And that's for a bunch of reasons. One of the reasons is education. We've been running lots of workshops and things. Communication with farmers, and they're making changes at the farm. And we know that in this particular case, this is a single dairy that this is blended milk from all of their farms that we're looking at. This is what actually goes to market. But we know that they are getting feedback and they're listening and they're adjusting practices. When we say pay attention to cow health, they're really focused more on cow health. When we say don't feed them wet forage 5 minutes before they're going to be milked, they're listening to it and they're not feeding them wet forage and not feeding them 5 minutes. Now, on that note, I will tell you that we just finished the complete 2-year study, and we are in the process of analyzing all the data. So we have farm surveys on everything they were doing at the farms for the past 2 years. We have all of our sensory data on samples that we tested from the farms over those 2 years. And we have fats analysis data and chemistry data on the samples. In the next couple of months, we're going to be bringing that all together and publishing information that will be available to you on what happens at the farm level that might be affecting the flavor quality of milk so that you can react to it and think about it. I will tell you that this index, I want to show you this slide. Remember earlier I showed you a slide and said these are all the grass-fed milks in the market? That was from 2024. This is from this past August, that pretty much this is 100% grass-fed milk in the market is now within pretty much 4 boxes. Only one sample fell outside. That shows you how much improvement there's been in the market for 100% grass-fed milk. Was there a question?
Peak grass, June. The aftertaste is like a wet dog. There
are some, it depends on the farm, it depends on what they're eating, and it depends on how the cows are exercising. And we don't know all the answers of why. We did see, and it's going to be in our report, we do see some seasonal differences. And I don't know all the answers right now on why we see those seasonal differences. But some of you that are dairy farmers, they know it. I mean, they tell us, they say, yeah, we know come the summer, it's going to have a little different taste than in the wintertime. Now, the question is why? Because of what the cow, I mean, what the cow's eating is a primary driver. But you can see how wonderful the story, even over the last 2-3 years for grass-fed milk has gone. The other thing that I want to point out is this last slide, and then I'll take some final questions because it's almost great. We recently did a workshop in New York with a bunch of farmers. And during the workshop, we had them do what you just did, which is we had them bring milk from their farm, and we all tasted the milk, and they tasted it. And we tasted it using our score sheet and developed the quality index so that we could tell them, all right, we as an independent instrument say your quality of milk is this, this, or this. We had them taste the same samples blind and tell us how much they liked them or not. And what this graph is saying is that what they as a group said they liked more or liked less correlated with the quality index that we developed at UVM. So even with farmers doing blind testing, this quality index is predictive. That's very important because now if we have confidence that we have a way to measure quality and can teach you to the question about the education and training at the farm level, we have a tool that you can taste at the farm and you can rate flavor quality of the milk, flavor quality of the beef, flavor quality of products made with the milk. In fact, this even goes beyond that. We have flavor quality indices for produce, but you with some confidence know if the changes in the quality of your product went in a positive or a negative direction. Did it go in a quality area that your customer is going to like or not like? So this now becomes really powerful stuff. And the problem is, and the challenge, the question that was from someone online a few minutes ago is, okay, other than us, the experts at a university, tasting and realizing this, how do we transfer that knowledge to all of you at the farm level so that you don't just get some hints and some things here, hopefully you learn some things about tasting and flavor, but actually get some real skills, consistent, precise skills to measure stuff at your farm, at your operation, so that as you make changes, as things happen, you can keep track of what the effect was on flavor quality, and then you can manage around that. You can manage higher flavor quality. All right, I apologize because I did go a little bit over, but I'm going to leave it at that. Any questions at the end here from in the room or online? Sure. In front.
When quality is defined by like it's actually nutritional quality versus us, and what we like or dislike.
The question was what happens when quality is defined by nutritional value versus what we like, right? It doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. Telling someone this is healthier for you does not compel them to want to eat and drink it and do it all the time. If it's healthy for them and it tastes good, then they'll do it. And consumers lie all the time. I have been in more focus groups where consumers will say, oh, that one doesn't taste as good, but if you're telling me that has anti-cancer things in it and this, I will definitely buy that one. And then we send them into another exercise where there's a fake store they can go in, they can take whatever they want as part of their payment. They don't take the stuff that we just told them was healthier. They take the stuff that they like the flavor better, right? It's human nature. So we have to be careful. Earlier, I talked about compliance, and nutrition is another one of those compliance issues we've got to be careful of, where to some degree, some people will compromise what they're eating because they need the health benefit, right? In some situations, but in the big picture, people are people, and they really do just eat what they like. So it gets a little complicated. Great question. Other questions in the back?
I was just gonna clarify about the different milk samples. You mentioned the fourth one, I think it was the fourth one that we tried, or maybe the fifth one, wasn't exclusively grass fed, that they were pasture raised.
Yeah,
But that's also grass fed, right?
those are grass fed, just not 100% grass fed. Correct.
So they're also getting corn silage or something.
I believe they are organic pasture. Sarah, do you know they're
I don't know which one it was, but I think it was Rogers.
Yeah.
Organic. So they could be getting,
Grain or something else.
Okay. When we say grass fed in the rest of our city, it's 100% organic grass. That should be.
Thank you.
And we also have to be careful in the industry because Organic Valley now has trademarked the term grass fed without a hyphen. So grass fed without a hyphen is specifically Organic Valley, I think 100%. And then grass fed with a hyphen is everybody else. But the question was the difference between some of the samples we just tasted. And in the samples we tasted, we had Monument, which was, I think they're also organic, right? They're just conventional milk, just single farm conventional milk. We had 3 100% grass fed, meaning they're not getting any grain. Organic Valley, Maple Hill, and Family Farmstead. Then we had 2 organic, I'll say pasture raised, but they're also grass fed. They're just not 100% grass fed. They could be getting other stuff. And that was the Rogers and the Sweet Rowan. One more question up the back.
Yeah, I read this book a while ago by actually 2 books. Mark Skatsker, he has a book about beef and another book called The Dorito Effect.
Yep.
Where he goes into saying like our bodies have lost the ability to taste some of these things that our bodies really need. How does all that play into previous question and just what you're
It does play in. It's very complicated. He's the Canadian guy. His book on beef, is that called? Steak. Highly recommend it for anybody who wants to read a great book. Those things do play into it. And I don't have the time to go into it. We can talk later if you want. As instruments who are just measuring things, we try to not factor in all of those other factors. We're just measuring, okay, for whatever reason it is, what are we actually smelling and tasting? And so where in his case, he was looking for, I think he started out trying to look for the best steak in the world is actually how he started out. And then all the.
Two very just like steak is all about the search for beef and how,
Right.
Steaks have their own restaurant style, whatever. But then Dorito Effect is pretty much like synthetic flavors have masked what our bodies need to be healthy. We don't need to eat as much of it when we're.
Yeah. So in the movie Bamber, Thumpy's mom says, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. So having gone through the development of Doritos, I'll just say that I don't totally agree with that position or his position on the Dorito effect. So we'll leave it there. You ask me about that later. I apologize. We are out of time, but thank you very much, everyone, for coming and joining us.